All right, let's bring in Ryan Mauro. He's a national security analyst at the Clarion Project as well. Ryan, thanks for joining us this morning. First of all, your take on the decisive action, that the airstrikes the president took yesterday and sort of the outcome from it.
Well, first of all, I'm stunned that it actually happened, and that's because this is such a change from President Trump's rhetoric on the campaign trail and things that he said previously, but this is a flip-flop that I very much welcome. This was a precision strike. It was very carefully handled. It doesn't threaten regime implosion where Assad could fall, and then we're dealing with a worse problem, but it sends a very strong signal to Iran, to North Korea, to Assad, to Russia, and it did so in actually a humane way. Trump called Russia, let them know it was coming so they could get their people out of the way, and it was even done in a way to minimize casualties among Assad's forces. So everyone out there that was saying this might be World War III and we're going to war with Russia, you were being dramatic. It's nowhere near that. There's no chance of that right now.
Yeah. Take us back the past 8 years to remind people this is not the first time Bashar al-Assad has used chemical weapons to kill many, many people. I mean, we have seen this happen before. The difference is the leadership styles, how presidents respond to that when it happens.
Right. Look at the speed with which this happened. That's so impressive because usually these things can go on and on. But what President Trump did was send a very clear message that when you cross a line, and he didn't even set this red line, I'm going to act appropriately and very quickly and decisively. And so there's a message now that went out to the whole world, which is that there is a new sheriff in town, and this new sheriff wants to look like RoboCop compared to the old sheriff. You're dealing with a whole new set of dynamics, and every ally and enemy around the world right now is recalculating their policy.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned this is as much about restoring U.S. credibility as it is about changing the dynamic on the ground there. What happens next? You know, I know you said you'd like to avoid too much of a shakeup or a regime change, but how do they do that, and what's the best next outcome here?
Well, the most immediate thing we're looking to see is if Assad uses chemical weapons again. Based on this reaction, I would say he probably wouldn't. But following that, though, is when Assad really starts massacring people in numbers far greater than the chemical attack that you saw. Then how does President Trump react? Is this really about chemical weapons being used or about the pain and the death toll that we see on a daily basis? And that's why it was good for President Trump to only strike one airbase, because now he can say, there's some left for me to strike. If you want to escalate this, we can escalate it. So this is a way of putting U.S. policy in a stronger direction, making Assad think twice about the things that he's doing, and also cause a collapse in confidence, perhaps, among those around him. I wouldn't be surprised if you see people defecting from the regime now.
How do you think this country will respond to the airstrikes? As you've seen, Congress is very divided about it. You have members like Senator Rand Paul saying you can't take this action without getting our approval. Do you think that the country will come together based on how President Trump has responded, or do you think it will further divide us?
Who would have thought that we'd be here this early in the Trump administration where on a key point he's in agreement with Hillary Clinton? She was calling for this on a much larger scale, but still this action is something that she would support. So there is widespread bipartisan support for this. I completely understand the issue of congressional authorization. It makes me uncomfortable as well. But as a national security analyst and a human rights activist, this is something that I welcome for sure. And the other point I would make is that for those that are uncomfortable with getting involved in civil wars and humanitarian missions like this, which is what it was, saying, well, this isn't a national security issue, look at the target that we hit. You may not realize it, that was a terror target. That airbase was used by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps of the Iranian regime to sponsor terrorism. Hezbollah, a designated foreign terrorist organization, also operated out of there. So we didn't just strike an airbase that was used to carry out a chemical weapons attack on civilians. A terror target was struck.
Absolutely. Ryan, as you know full well, Syria is a client state of Russia. Russia reacting today on the other side of the world saying, we're going to stop deconflicting in the air zone over Syria as sort of a swat back at the U.S. How do we handle Russia as this thing unfolds?
First of all, I don't think that the scrapping of that agreement is going to last. Neither side has an interest in having a mid-air dogfight. So Russia has to do something. This is what they came up with. They'll retaliate somehow, maybe by bombing U.S.-backed rebels. And Iran is likely to orchestrate some type of small terror plot in response.
All right, Ryan Mauro, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks for
your perspective. Really interesting. All right, more on this.